Okay, good morning and welcome to Yeshiva YouTube, just Daf It. We're starting a new parak today, the fourth parak, Kesubos, Daf Mem Beis, number 42. The title of this parak is called Narish and Esfatata. Talks about a couple of different ideas, more about Bosh, about Onus and Mafata, and then we'll move on to other Mishnayos which talk about the rights that a father has to his daughter, and ultimately what a husband has in his wife when he gets married. We'll talk more about the Kesuba coming up a little later in the parak. Um, let's get started. Mem Aleph and Beis on the bottom. Narish and his fatata. Right? There was Pitoy, Nara, Boshta, Pugama, Vaknasa, Shalavia. This is basically a repetition of what we learned in the previous parak. By Mafuta, it goes to her father. Asar betvusa. When it comes to a tvusa, someone who's raped, in addition, the father gets the sar. Amda bedin at shalom meisa'av. Let's say we're going to talk more about this in Iyad Ben Sion, what exactly Amda bedin means, but it has a lot of ramifications here. Basically, the article translates it means that he sues, right? They sue. There's a lawsuit for the pitoy, the onus, right? You don't just get it automatically. You have to take him to court. He's not going to want to give the money so quickly. You have to take him to court. So Amda bedin means they sue, and I think the article translates they sue and based in reached a psak din, right, that the guy is chayiv to pay boshus and gam and the knas and sar by anusa, someone who's raped. Let's say Basin concluded, that's the way we'll translate it here. Basin concluded that the guy is chayiv, right, but they didn't collect yet. In order to collect money, it's not so easy to collect money. You get a ruling in your favor in court, you still have to collect the money from the person. Not so easy. You can freeze their bank account and garnish their wages, different ways of collecting the money. But here the money wasn't collected yet. So, the father's still alive, and based in Paskin that the guy's chayiv to pay, Harei and Shalav, they belong to the father. Meisav, if the father died after the court's ruling, Harei and Shalakin, the money belongs already to the father. So who gets it from the father? His inheritors, right? The girl's brothers who. Right, the sons inherit the father according to the Torah, not the daughter. However, if there was no court ruling, they didn't rule in court that the guy's chayiv, and the father passed away before the ruling, and then the ruling came in. They're chayiv. It doesn't belong to the father; never belonged to the father, so it goes to her. Right? She represents herself. The same halacha would apply if the court ruled in her favor before bagros. Harein shalav, meisav harein shalachin. Belong to the father. The father dies, his inheritors, the sons get it. Right? She got raped or she got seduced as a nara, and then she turned to Bageris before the based in Paskin that you have to pay. It belongs to herself. From Shimon Omer, he rules more in favor of the girl. It's not only enough that based in Paskin, the money has to actually be collected by the father. If it's not collected by the father, then it doesn't go to his inheritors. Even if the based in Paskin in the life of the father, and then the father died or she became a Bulgarian, it doesn't make a difference. According to Reb Shimon, she would still get the money. Harein shal atzma, until the actual money is given, the wages are garnished. Then only then does it go to the father, and if he dies, it goes to the brothers. When it comes to Maisei our father, we're going to learn the father is entitled to her wages that she earns. If she earns the work, you think you're an entrepreneur as a young girl. Who's that young entrepreneur? This 3-year-old girl on YouTube. I forgot her name. There's a couple of these kids that make. There's a guy with toys. Someone's toys, like a 5-year-old kid rating toys. He's like a millionaire. And then there's a kid and there's a girl. I don't know. Makes comments, makes these viral videos. Her money, technically, according to the Torah, belongs to her parents. She doesn't get her bank. I think they give her the money in real life. But Mitziyasa, Afal Pish Gapsa, when it comes to Mitziyah, if she finds something, also technically it belongs to the father. Afal Pish Gapsa, Yerushimon admits, even if it wasn't collected, Meisa Avrei and Shalachin, there, and even before she collects, it belongs to the father. Once she did the work, she's already chayiv. The money is chayiv to her. It wasn't paid yet, so it belongs to the father. And he died, then it belongs to the brothers in that case. The difference in reasoning is because the former case we're talking about a knas, principally a knas. Onus and mafata is principally a knas. There's also boshus and gam and sar, but principally the knas. We'll talk about more if it applies to all three of them, just the knas, but the knas doesn't become money until it's collected, So therefore, according to Reb Shimon, if it wasn't collected, it still belongs to her. So the Gemara says, "My kamash malan." What's the chiddush of this mishnah? Hanina mfata nosin shlosh dvarim. My own is harba. In the previous parak, we said exactly the same thing as the first line of this mishnah. Mfata nosin boshes begam beknas. Most of all, ownish nosin is sar. He gives addition sar lavia. So the Gemara answers lavia is tzrichla. The chiddush of this mishnah is to tell you that it goes to her father. Whereas lavia nami pshitam and the chayoy b'fata. The fact that he's giving, right, boshes gam and the knas, in the case of mafat, if we're talking about a case where it goes to herself, for food that would get nothing, right? If the money principally should go to her, right? She seduced, but she did it willingly, so therefore she waived. She was mocheles. She foregone. She foregoes her boshen gam and her knas. So the Gemara says no. The chiddush of the Mishnah, amda b'din, like we explained, it's talking about this chiddush about coming to court, right? Looks at the Rishon and Rabban, the teacher of the looks at the Rishon and Rabban, and the Rabban say once Zamda B'din already belongs to the father, even if it didn't collect yet. And Reb Shimon says no, it has to be collected. It's not Hassam. We learned in our Mishnah in Shavuos. Anasta Patis has BC, right? Someone comes to court, he makes a lawsuit. He says you raped her. This is my daughter. He denies it. Lo Anasi v'lo Pasisi Mashbiachan. He makes it take a shvuah. We'll see. There's a type of shvuah you take in a pikadon. You can take a shvuah in a pikadon. We'll see if knas is called a pikadon. That's a shvuah del raisa. But Amar Amin, he said, answered Amin. He took the shvuah. And then before basically could convict him, he admitted he's chayiv for bima anis, or he actually did it. He actually raped or seduced the daughter. Chayiv, he's chayiv to pay. Rishon poter, Shimon potters. We're talking about a korban, being a korban. There's a korban if you swear falsely on a shvuah pikadon. So you're chayiv a korban asham. In addition to the fact you're chayiv not just to pay back what you're chayiv, but in order to pay an additional fee, a fine of 1/5 chomish plus the korban asham. Reb Shimon poter, Shimon exempts him from the korban and presumably also the chomish. And Mishalom knas al piyasmo, you don't pay the knas al piyasmo, right? He's motive at knas. He swore falsely. But before basically can convict him, he admitted, and principally we're talking about Ozimafat, that the principal payment is the knas. So motive knas is poter. Shir Yashin al Kim we learned yesterday. Basically has to obligate you. If you obligate yourself, right? If you were modeh in the knas, then you exempt yourself from the knas, and therefore exempt yourself from the korban. However, Shimon admits that you do pay posh. That's considered money, right? Mammon does balding to make him dummy. Abaye asked the following question from Rab. Ha'omer al chavero and asked but these as biti, right? Similar to the Mishnah in Shavuos. V'hamidascha b'din. He adds the fact, not only did I accuse you in a different court of Bima'anes and Mafat, my daughter, but I brought you in a different court, and based in Paskin, you're chayav to me money. Never happened in a different court. It never happened. He denies the whole thing. Minishba, and he makes him take a shvuah. Bahoda, and he swears falsely, and then he's model. Or Shimon, according to Shimon, what do you say? Came with Amud Rabbi Shimon says, once you have gvia, once you collect the money, so then it belongs to the father. Came with the Amud B'din, Mamona Havi. Right? We just said before, when it comes to a shvuah, right? The claim, the swearing falsely about the onus and the pito is not enough. But here, where he's swearing falsely, Amud B'din, once it's Amud B'din, so therefore, it's considered, and what we're saying, Amud B'din means that based in made a psak din, that he's chayav money. Amona have it turns into Amona Mechayiv al that korban shvuah. We'll see in a second that only by knas does he exempt from a korban asham, but because now it's money, he's chayiv korban shvuah. Dilma avagav dama b'din knas after, or maybe Rav Shimon would still say it's considered a knas. Amrullah, he answered him. Rabbi answered him, Amona happy. Even Rav Shimon's motive Mechayiv al that korban shvuah. Even Rav Shimon's motive Mechayiv al korban shvuah. Asive. Abai asked the following question of Rabbi. Reb Shimon Omer from Rabbisa. Reb Shimon Omer. Yachal Omer Chavero Nasa B'tisa as Biti V'Omer Lo Anasi V'Lo B'tisa Hemid Shorcha as Avdi V'Omer Lo Hemis. Right? All these cases are cases of knasos principally. Right? He denies ownership or pitoi, or one person claims that your shore gored my evet Kanaini and killed him, which are chayiv a knas of 30 silver coins. V'Omer Lo Hemis O Sha'Omer Lo Avdo He Palta Es Sheni, or an evet comes to court and says, my master, he knocked out my tooth with Smisa Es Eini, or he blinded my eye, in which case he's chayav to set me free. And the owner denies him. In Ishba, in all these cases, right? The defendant, they swear the Vahoda, and then they admit they swore falsely, and they're chayiv. You might think in these cases you're chayiv a korban shvua. Talmud Omer v'chichesh v'amito b'bikadon o b'sumas yada b'gazel o shekes hamisa o matzah aveda v'chichesh b'nishba al sheker. This is a pasuk in Vayikra, right? And he denies it. Bikadon, a deposit, or tumas yada, or a loan, or a gezel, he stole something, or eshek, or he owes him wages, as hamisa o matzah aveda, or he's holding a lost object that belongs to me. He denied. He takes a shvua al sheker. You're chayiv a korban shvua. That's the pasuk. You're chayiv a korban shvua, and you're chayiv chomesh. Ma'elim yichad and shein mamon. All these cases, gezel, loans, bikadon, they're already considered money. Av kol shein mamon yatso elu shein knas, to exclude payments which are knas, like onus and hemi shoro at avdi, right? Or the fact that he has to free him, right? You knock down my tooth or eye, you have to free. These are all cases of knasos. So you don't pay. You don't have a korban shvua, even though he admitted and he swore falsely. So the Gemara says, "Ben Beis and Beis, my lab b'shalom." Isn't this brisa talking about already where the court concluded it, even though it didn't say in the brisa, right, that he said, right, you were ma'anis my daughter, and I took you to a different court based in already paskin that you're chayv mimam. It doesn't say that, but it must be. We'll see. It's talking about that. So the Gemara denies it. No, lo b'shalom b'din. We're talking about it wasn't only b'din. That's why Rabbi Shimon says you're pater. The Gemara says v'habed the reisha b'shalom b'din. Say if anam b'shalom b'din. This was just at the end of a brayse. So let's quote now the beginning of the brayse. Tani Reisha, only Ella Dvarim Shmashal Melem at a Karen. You only chayav a korban shvua, things you pay a Karen, the principal. Tashlum Kev, Tashlum Rabbi Chamisha, Vaonis Mafat, Mosi Shem Raminayin. All these cases, Kefels, where you steal, you pay double. You pay 4 and 5 times if you steal something and you shechted an animal, and you shecht Shoroseh, you shechted, or you sold it. Vaonis Mafata, these are cases of Knasos. Mosi Shemra. Right, you defame an Nara Murasa, you say she committed adultery as an Nara Murasa, and you're found to be false, pay 100 silver coins. How do you know these cases of Knossos? Talmud Omer Mala Mal Riba. Even in these cases, which seem to be Knossos, you bring a Korban Shvua. Hey Chidami. Idlo Amad B'din. If there was no Amida B'din, Kfeila Me'ika, right? There's no concept of Kefel. Kefel is a payment on Geneva, right? It has to be Amad B'din, because if he's modeh b'knas, right? If they didn't paskin, then he can be modeh b'knas. He could admit to it and pater himself. Must be they paskined already, and therefore there's kefil. El pshita b'shalom b'din. Must be something the Reisha is talking b'shalom b'din. The Reisha b'shalom b'din. Seifa nam b'shalom b'din. Therefore the Seifa, which is we just quoted it on the previous Amud, which is the end of it, also must be talking about Amud b'din. Amar lei. So Rabbah said back to him, Yachilna l'shnu yilach Reisha b'shalom b'din v'Seifa b'shalom b'din. I really have maybe a way out, a dochik way out. We'll see. It's not an easy way out, but I could answer the beginning of the beginning of the Bryce was talking about where there was a psaktin. The Seif was talking about there's no psaktin. The Reish was talking about mamo, right? Already converted into mamo. There was a psaktin, so therefore there's a korban shvua if you swear falsely. And the Seif was talking about where there was no psaktin in court. And you can say the whole Bryce of Rabbi Shimoni. I'm not going to give you an answer which is a difficult answer. Because you have a way out. You can say, listen, Reish Rabbi Shimon Omer. Oh, listen, Seifa, Divrei Rabbi Shimon. If it was all Rabbi Shimon, it's difficult to say it's all Rabbi Shimon, because it should have introduced the Brisa, Rabbi Shimon Omer, at the beginning of the Brisa, or at the end say Divrei Rabbi Shimon, to say the whole Brisa Rabbi Shimon. The fact that it said Rabbi Shimon says in the beginning of the Seifa shows that the beginning sounds like the Reisha, the Rabban, and the Seifa is Rabbi Shimon. Lakula b'Shalom b'Din must be the whole Brisa Shalom b'Din. Reisha Rabban and Seifa Rabbi Shimon. The Reisha must be Rabban and Seifa is Rabbi Shimon. Modina l'chal inyan korban shvua. In the Seifa, which was talking about, right, knossos, right over there, when it comes to onus and pitoy and freeing an eved or paying 30 silver coins for killing an eved knaini by the shore. Right, in that case, Reb Shimon says, even though it was Talmud B'din and it became mamon, so to speak, according to Reb Shimon, because there was Talmud B'din and they already paskined on it, right? He said to him, basically the case was, if he didn't say in the Brisa, it means that he the allegations were that you raped my daughter and I took you to another court and they already paskin that you're chayav money. By Shkoman Shvua, still Reb Shimon Pater, the Torah goes out as way to say v'chichesh, because it started off, we'll see later, the Gemara explains better, that it started off as a knas, even though now it's mamon, so therefore it's not considered a regular case of tzumas yad or pikadon. V'chikamina mamon heavy. When they say it's considered mamon heavy, Larisha Labonov. It's only considered money according to Reb Shimon, in order for the inheritance to pass on to the children. Meaning, once there's Hamada Bedin, once based in Paskin, so it's considered money already, and therefore, if the father were to die, it doesn't go to the daughter; it goes to the sons, who are its inheritors already. It's not considered not collected. ACV, the immediate question. Right? It depends on the gvi, on the collection. Like our Mishnah says, if there was no collection, didn't garnish the wages before the father dies, they belong to her. If you're saying that's the only aspect, he says considered mammon in order to let his sons inherit, that he already collected in a certain sense that his son will inherit it. La'atzma, why does it go to herself? The akin by mehevi should belong already to the brothers, to the father's inheritors. Amarava, hamilsa kasha be Rav Yosef Esrim v'tartin. In this question, Rabbi and Rav Yosef had difficulty for 22 years. They didn't have an answer to this. Ifrik adiyos Rav Yosef Reisha, until Rabbi died and Rav Yosef became the Rosh Hashiva. It says in a different Masechta, it was a machlokas who should be the Rosh Hashiva, Rav Yosef or Rabbi. And Rav Yosef deferred to Rabbi. Rabbi did it for 22 years. After he died, Rav Yosef became the Rosh Hashiva. Upirka, once he became Rosh Hashiva, he had special help from God. Upirka, he was able to answer the question. When it comes to onus and pito, it says v'nasan. He has to give, right? He only, there especially onus and pito, because it says an extra word in the Torah, v'nasan, he has to give. So it only comes to father, not after the psak din of Beis Din, only after the gvia, the collection. So therefore, it doesn't belong to the father until after the collection, nor to Morish the Banav. Otherwise, if it wasn't collected yet, then it belongs to her if the father dies. If you become a Rabbah, Mamona have Elisha Laban. Rabbah said in a certain aspect, Shimon considers it money, Risha Laban, Bishar Knas. So let's talk about other Knasos except for Ones Upito. And then where's the El Ma'ata, Gabi Evid, Dichsiv, Kesef Shloshim Shkalim, Yitain Ladona. Another Knas, if you're sure gores an Evid and kills the Evid, Kanayin, you have to pay 30 silver coins, Yitain Ladonov. Hachanami l'zichta Torah, it says Yitain, Torah l'adon al Mishas Hasina. You just said the only exception is only Zabitoy. And where it says Yitain l'chuv v'nasan l'chuv. Nas v'nasan that he gave, man, it sounds like it actually has to be given yet. Yitain means it will be given in the future, so therefore it doesn't actually necessitate actually to be given already. Ihachi, so the Gemara continues, Tamaloma Rachichesh, Tamaloma Natsimi Baile. What the Bryce is saying, that by Shark Knossos, right? Which the Bryce has said, not just the case of Evid getting gored by a shore, in the case of an Evid that his eye and his tooth got knocked out, it also says onus and pitoi. It also says onus and pitoi. So it should say Tamalor Rachichesh, Tamalor Nasan Mi Baile. Since it includes the case of onus and pitoi, it should say the real reason you're punished from Korban Shvu, according to Rebbe Shimon, is because there's no Nesina yet. And it's still a Knas. I'm a Rav, no. The Chichesh, which is talking about onus of pita, was not talking about a regular case of onus of pita. It's talking about where there's a plak din and Beis Din. And then she became a Bulgaris, right? So the money belonged to her. Once she becomes a Bulgaris, Shimon says until the collection, right, that's the father doesn't get it until the collection to inherit to his sons. So therefore she became a Bulgaris, like our Mishnah says. So therefore it will go to her rightfully, right, because there's no collection yet. Umeisa, and then she dies. The Hasam ki kayaris avia mina dida kayaris. Once she dies, who inherits the daughter? The father inherits the daughter. And there it became mama when it became money over there. So there, that's v'chichesh is telling me in that case, we'll see, since it started out as a knas, so therefore you need a pasuk. You can't just use the word v'nasan v'chichesh. Tell me there's an exception. You don't bring a korban shvua. Why, if the case of Onus Upito in the Brisa was talking about where she became a Bulgaris and then she died, right? Why did it say that's Knas? It should be called Mammon, right? It become Mammon because she died and now it becomes money. That's her money. The Brisa meant to say that these are different because, and the reason is that there's no Knas, there's no Korban Shvu over there, is because they started off as a Knas, even though we said the case of Hamada B'Din where based on already pasking your Chayav Mammon, it doesn't make a difference because they started out being a Knas, and that's Rabbi Shimon Shita. Once it originated as a Knas, there's no Korban Shvua, and presumably there's no Chomesh also. We'll continue this discussion tomorrow between Abaye and Rabbah. Very interesting discussion. I'm sure you're all enjoying it. Stay tuned for Ian Ben Sion. We're going to discuss Hamada B'Din, exactly what it means. categorize Amar B'Din basically as a psak din. A Mason gave the psak din that, right? They gave the ruling, the court ruling that that the person is chayav to pay the owner the knas. We'll talk about because our school says suing is not a Gemara din. So the Gemara din, our school din. We'll talk about that coming up. Ben Sion coming up next.